We come your way Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. GMT on africaglobal.radio.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Africa Global Radio. And of course, AGR On Demand, the podcast versions of the live show that we do, is all there for you. You can listen to it as well as log on to our Facebook by following us on Facebook. Leave your comments and contributions, and of course on on Twitter, AF Global Radio is the handle. Whilst tweeting at us, make sure you use the hashtag The Africa Daily Show so it could get directly to us. We're about to jump into our discussion zone right about now. Don't go anywhere. Now, yesterday, the 24th of January 2021, actually saw the third observation of the International Day of Education, a very important topic. I mean, the popular saying, which is a fact, education is the key. So yesterday was that day where we observed that thing that actually empowers us, knowledge-wise, as the key to unlocking opportunities. So we would be talking about that right about now, marking the day, as well as getting a Ghanaian perspective of education, how it has been, how it has evolved over the years. We spoke to the Dean, Faculty of Education at the University for Development Studies, Dr. Ibrahim Gunu. He spoke to us earlier today, which we will be playing that during the course of the conversation right here. But then let me bring in my colleagues, Epifania, and of course, Hafiz Gunu. Guys,
Charlie.
How are you? You look like Sub-Zero,
Ish.
Mortal Kombat.
Is that it?
I've been wanting to say that. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah. What if you were supposed to take a character? I think she would be Sonya Blade or something. Yeah. Hafiz.
I prefer you can.
Liu Can, but you actually look like with a mask on, of course. Yeah, let it be there at all times. Now, education is the key. We actually, yesterday was International Day of Education,
Okay.
and it's been Sunday. We definitely have to talk about it and look at it today, mark the day, and of course, the rest of the week will be centered on education, different angles of it. But let's look at today being us marking International Day of Education. Hafiz.
All right. Thank you very much.
Mm.
International Day of Education.
Right.
Yes. When looking at education, I think for me, I took particular interest in the theme for this year.
Mm.
Recover and revitalize
Right.
education for the COVID-19 generation, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm.
And for me, I think that theme speaks volumes, and for two reasons. I think it's a sad admission of the fact that we are probably looking at not seeing the life we knew before gone.
Okay.
And B, the latter part of it,
Mm-hmm.
the COVID-19 generation. And I
Right.
think we are beginning to see the planning and strategizing for a generation that whose learning experience is going to be remarkably different from ours.
Right.
Yes, 5, 10 years from now, you talk about how you went to school and everything,
Mm.
and someone will probably not relate.
Mm.
Yes, and that's just a sad reality
Mhm.
to witness. But then, as we try to understand the social and economic disruption this whole pandemic has caused, I think, according to UNESCO, out of over, I think, 190 schools, we are talking about 1.6 billion students that have been impacted by this whole situation. So it's not something that we need to take lightly.
Absolutely.
Yes, but then again, in every situation we find ourselves, you have a few people out there that want to see the silver lining. Yes, that try to look for the silver lining in every situation.
Right.
Yes, and for them, they see COVID as that reset button to have us do things a different way, especially when it comes to institutions of higher learning and the way they conducted themselves. I mean, previously you would have them give all kinds of reasons and also hide under the cover of the fact that it's not part of their tradition to do certain things, and so resisted change in every forms. These days, you have them trying to do all kinds of things to accommodate the pandemic. For instance, when you talk about the learning methods, I mean, these days you have students even defending academic work via Zoom,
Right.
and all that, just trying to to navigate this whole situation, like you wouldn't expect. I think previously, if you had mentioned virtual learning, I mean, it it was almost a crime. Really.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was something they probably would
Wouldn't
resist with everything.
consider.
Exactly.
Right.
But we are having to reconsider some of these things. If you talk about the finances and the fees here in our base Ghana, I think students have begun angling to have their fees waived for the academic year and everything. So everyone is just trying to understand what exactly is going on. Even if you look at the method of assessment and everything, for some institutions, the use of high you know stakes, especially when it comes to exams. Some have always had an issue with conducting high stakes exams, using that as a mode of assessment.
Right.
And the pandemic has actually given them the chance to put forward this argument. And so we've seen certain institutions, especially in the West, try to make SATs now optional. Yes, the University of Miami was even considering it. I don't know how far they've gone with deliberations on that.
Right.
Yes, so for those that have even issues with WASI and everything, they've actually come out of the woodworks and trying to put forward certain arguments as indeed
Looking for alternatives.
yes, exactly,
Right.
when it comes to the mode of assessment. Yes. So we've seen COVID disrupt lives, but then it also has its downsides, especially
True.
with these new learning methods. You have parents now looking at having to get more data, which is very expensive.
Yeah.
Yes, some parents have to worry about how much screen time their kids are exposed to these days. So it's a mixed bag of issues, but
Yeah.
then hopefully we'll get there.
All right. Thank you. Let's get on now. Epi,
Barry.
it's International Day of Education.
Yeah, it
Which
is.
which subject do you used to like back in the days? High school, junior high? Which
Religious
was
and
your
what?
favorite? RME. Everybody loves RME. Because you think about what you do on a daily basis.
No one will mention
Religious.
us.
Guy, behave. No, behave. Epi,
But I'm sure if I was like that good at math, I would have made that my favorite.
I dare you to mention one.
no.
Then did you hear the statement I made?
Anyway, which was yours before you begin?
I think I liked French when I was in primary.
Oh, okay.
I liked French when I was in primary. But then I think junior high I liked pre-tech.
Okay, yeah, me
And
too.
then
Surprisingly.
Really?
yeah,
Yeah.
pre-tech and then science.
Okay.
And then for senior high, I fell in love with geography.
Oh.
Yeah,
I think
geography.
we find ourselves in the
A
same.
few things are starting to make sense to me now. Go on.
It's okay. It's okay. All right, Epi.
So I'll start with a message that actually came from the Director General.
Okay.
We were talking about the UNESCO Director General
Right.
on the occasion of the International Day of Education
Okay.
for this year, 2021.
Right.
As much as the day was yesterday, globally they are marking it today.
Today, right.
Yes, because yesterday was Sunday.
Sunday, of course.
Exactly. So this is what he said. At the peak of the pandemic, schools were actually closed for 91% of learners, or 1.5 billion pupils and students. It then became apparent to everyone that education was a global public good, and school was more than just a place of learning.
Yeah. Right.
It was also a place that provided protection, well-being, food, and freedom.
Right.
On this International Day of Education, UNESCO invites you to promote education as a fundamental right and the most powerful aid to the development that we have.
Right.
Defending the future of this right means defending the right to the future.
Okay.
This was by Audrey Azoulay. Now he's put a lot together there. And yes, until the children actually came to stay home, most people didn't understand the impact education had in the lives of the children.
Right.
Until you could see them running around and know that tomorrow too they are not going to school. You didn't realize the importance of something that you had become all too familiar with because you kept doing it over and over again. I mean,
Right.
just like come learn, go write exams, and then you're moving forward in life. But when there was a disruption to that cycle, you could tell the impact it had on the children,
Okay.
the toll it actually took on the parents themselves. And this has made us understand the key thing is that it's a right,
Right.
a fundamental right.
Uh-huh.
It's a human right. So every child out there should have access to education. But that may not necessarily be the case in certain places, in certain cases. You have people who would not want to go, people who don't even have access to go to school.
Okay.
So for us to have a day that we mark that focuses on the importance, education opens up your mind. It opens you to, it's like a portal that takes you to a place of endless possibilities
Right.
and opportunities. It gives meaning and it helps people to actually make reasonable decisions
Right.
about their life.
Okay, thank you, Epi. Now, earlier, I spoke to Dr. Ibrahim Gunu, Dean, the Faculty of Education at the University for Development Studies, and he gave us his own perspective, his assessment, actually, on the Ghanaian education system since independence. And here is what he had to say. So, we want to find out from you your assessment of the Ghanaian education system since independence.
The educational system in Ghana dates back to the colonial period. The formal educational system, or the Western education, if you like, started somewhere 1529, and we have gone through a lot of reforms and restructuring. But the reality is, we have been able to solve some of the major problems in the country, but we still have a lot to deal with. I would just pin those issues to about three points in terms of the success, and in terms of the challenges, I'll pin that to also about 3 points.
Okay.
So I'm talking about access to education. We have succeeded on issues of access, and we have also succeeded on the issue of girl-child education. We can also talk about equity. But the major challenges that we are facing include issues of innovation, technology, and creativity. I think this is the starting point of the discussion.
Right. So when you say issues of technology, innovation, and all of that, what is it about it that we are finding difficult to do?
It has to do with the way we teach our students, the way we train our students, and that's creating a whole lot of challenges for them. We have been with the system, the educational system, for years now, yet we are seriously behind when we're talking about technology. And creativity creates all these kind of problems. So we must move beyond providing the literature of these subjects to providing practical sessions for them. And I think that is very important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let's also look at policies that governments have put in place to ensure the betterment of education. Aside these current policies that this government has actually put in place, let's look at back. Has there been any policy that you see that has been challenging or has been very smooth in terms of implementation?
When we're talking about policies, we are talking about different issues. We're talking about the policy text, and then we're talking about the policy impact. So in talking about the policy text, we have had a lot of educational reforms in Ghana. So we're talking about the reforms in the 80s, which brought about the free compulsory basic education.
Right.
And I think that has been very useful. And that has also increased access to education. So we have succeeded in this direction. But the point is, we have not been successful when we're talking about the TVET.
Okay.
And others will say vocational education, so to speak.
Right.
Which was a major component of this reform. So these are the issues that we're talking about.
Right.
So in terms of the policy text, it's been nice. The implementation has been a very serious challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's look at current government policies on education. Of course, one of the topmost one is the free education policy for SHS levels and all of that. What do you say to that?
The free senior high school policy has been one of the major policies of this government, and it's very important for me to mention that this government initiative has the potential to enhance access to secondary education. And in education policy context, this kind of investment is expected to yield a lot of benefits beyond the academic outputs in terms of exam results. So in my estimation, we're talking about providing equitable access to education, as I have mentioned earlier. We are also talking about creating an enlightened society. A lot more people will have the benefit of enjoying the educational system. And it will also equip Ghanaian students with appropriate value judgment, if you like. Because if they go through the educational system, it will give them the opportunity to develop all these skills. Okay. So I think that is very important and it must be encouraged.
Great.
But a major component of that should be to enhance the issues of technology, right, as I have mentioned. And I think we are gradually moving towards that direction.
Of course, since we are in a pandemic era where we have been forced actually to resort to virtual learning and what have you, has there been an improvement in that regard? Do you see it going towards the right direction, or you still see that challenges that we're facing?
I have seen that it is an important step towards that direction. But if you observe, we still have a lot of challenges. So I want to use this opportunity to mention that government should improve access to internet, because internet connectivity is important in doing these things that we intend to do in terms of digital learning. So I think the COVID-19 has redirected our efforts towards doing what is important to join the global community when we're talking about digital learning.
Okay.
So I think that is important, but it hasn't solved the problem that we are facing.
Great.
Yeah.
Now, lastly, let's talk about public-private education. Some have argued that in the private space, you find teachers actually, that are actually fit for a particular subject. They are thought critical thinking and, of course, problem solving, right? Teaching and learning environments as against the public, spaces where you find overcrowded curriculum, teachers not experts in subjects, not right educational learning spaces and all of that. What can you say on that?
It has to do with the way teachers are recruited. Their training is another aspect and the recruitment is one. Because if the right people are not recruited for the job, they will not be able to do a proper execution of what is expected of them. So I feel that we should improve on the way we recruit our teachers, most especially in private schools. Some of them are not having the required qualification to teach what they are teaching.
In private schools, rather, where people
in some of the private schools.
Okay.
We have individuals who are not professional teachers, and yet they have been engaged to do this kind of job.
But this is even the space
and let's
where people...
move away from the thinking that students in private school pass more than those in the public school.
Okay.
The reality is the private school will eventually attract the most intelligent students. So the individuals teaching there will ride on their level of intelligence. Okay. If you observe very well, the preschool system in Ghanaian public schools is not functioning very well.
Right.
So individuals send their children to private school where we have facilities for the preschool system. So those students will never return to the public schools. So you always find the better ones in private schools, and for that matter, the well-to-do, and then the others in public schools. And I think that is what is creating this kind of confusion in the minds of people in respect of performance.
My name is Abek Usego. I'm a playwright, poet, and actor. Well, I listen to Africa Global Radio all the time. You better do so too. It's where you can have your best in entertainment, news, and everything about Africa. Stay with us.
All right, and that was the voice of Dr. Ibrahim Gunu, who was the Dean of Faculty of Education at the University for Development Studies here in our base, Ghana. And he made some interesting submissions right there, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, Doctor spoke, and really, really interesting points he made there.
Yes, he made some very interesting points. Yes, talking about access. I think the part he mentioned that FQ, the free compulsory.
Yep, universal
yes,
basic, right.
FQ, free SHS, seems to have addressed that problem to an extent. Yes, and he also said that to actually improve that, especially in the time that we are in, they should improve internet connectivity.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
To have that. But he also went ahead to mention certain problems, especially in our system. Talked about innovation and especially in the area of technology.
TVET, right.
Yes, and TVET. And so for me, hammering on that part of the conversation where he enumerated the problem, I think largely referencing the words of Professor P.L.O. Lumumba, he said our system at the moment produces examination passing machines, and he couldn't be right.
Right.
I mean, this is a system that, if you look closely at how students graduate or are assessed, you have students that have the most retentive memory being praised, and those that choose to toe the route of TVET or technology,
trying to be practical about
exactly.
it.
And they seem to be looked down
They suffer
upon
the most.
because I mean it's a system where we actually have where students, the not so bright ones, are the ones that consider the vocational training. I don't know if you get me.
Yeah.
Yes, and that is quite problematic because if you have a system where practical knowledge is simply the preserve or is something that is handed out to the not so bright in the system, then that's actually
it's a problem, right?
It actually shows you where our priorities lie. Yes. So it means all we are interested in is in the theoretical aspect.
Get the
of
A's
it.
and the
Yes.
B's, and you're good to go.
So, but how it actually impacts our society is something that we haven't particularly looked at.
Right.
Everyone is looking to not get their hands dirty. They want to sit in the fancy offices.
Yep.
Yes. And so I think this and a whole lot of issues is actually impacting our educational setup, and we need to take a critical look at them. And also he mentioned the bit about recruitment and training of teachers. Yes, and I if I didn't get it wrong, I think you were trying to bring up the issue of where
the
students in the
assumption,
private
the argument,
sector,
yeah.
exactly.
So I was surprised when he made mention of the fact that it's not mostly the case.
Well, I mean, he's an experienced educator. I'm sure he's been asked that question a few times, every now and then. But I don't think to have. I don't know. Personally, I really didn't get his explanation that clearly, because I mean, if you look at a basic level, yes, even though we don't have, experienced teachers at that level
in the public sector or in the private sector.
In the private sector,
Private, okay.
you have a lot of students doing so well as compared to their colleagues in the public sector. It's only at the second cycle level, from senior high to the university, where you have the public sector schools. I mean, we've seen the national science and maths quiz, where students in the public sector actually are the ones doing better than the ones in their colleagues.
I think that's where he mentioned the right tools, the right environment, and they are equipped with the necessary learning materials that would enhance them.
No, but what then explains the reason behind students doing so well, even though they are supposed to be taught, or they are taught by people that are not so qualified?
Right.
How do you explain that disparity?
Right. Thank you very much. Well, Epi, let's hear you.
I take what he said on the TVET thing not being successful very seriously, because yes, it's not being serious. Hafiz said we've basically left it to people who, in other words, are not deemed to be so bright.
Yeah.
And basically that's what's been happening in the system for some time now.
Okay.
But one thing is, if you actually look at the TVET, it basically stands for the technical, vocational education and training.
Right.
And it's meant to serve different purposes. It's not just about coming together practicality. It prepares the youth for the world of work.
A ready job, right?
Exactly. And it takes a different form of learning. It's not the classroom, necessarily classroom type of learning where chew, pour, pass, forget. That system is not what happens with the TVET. With the TVET, it gives them the opportunity to actually be innovative. Because if they're trying to build something, and they feel like, okay, I wanted to rather work to the left instead of moving to the right, they have to sit and think of how they want that to be. I think that is actually brightness.
Okay.
Much more brightness than where we have become machines that actually just memorize things and go pour it out.
Yeah.
That mode of learning doesn't help anybody retain knowledge.
Not at all.
And we just do it because we don't see that it's going to is going to do anything for us in the future. It's about
Yeah.
getting the good grades.
Now.
Once you have the paper, it means you're qualified, you're good, so
Yeah.
you're going to get a good opportunity as compared to somebody who doesn't have
Who can
the
think outside the
Exactly.
box
And we have a world of work that is changing rapidly.
Yeah.
If you can't think on your feet, if you can't be innovative, it's going to be difficult for you out there. It's very tough.
Can be an industry
Exactly.
player.
So I believe the government
Yeah.
should actually put a lot innovation, a lot attention
Okay.
into this TVET sectors.
Right. Well, this is in the Ghanaian perspective. The one thing I took away was the takeaway for me was the equity bit he mentioned.
Okay.
Child education,
Education,
having
yeah.
access to education, everything, which is equity, which I think, since independence, or since we actually started having formal education here, this is something that has actually increased, right, and brought about a number of girl child, being enrolled in schools, and for me, that's a milestone, I must say. All right, thank you very much, guys, and thank you too for listening to the Discussion Zone. If you missed it, it will be on our YouTube channel today, so you can also comment. The show was Africa Daily on Africa Global Radio.